When my son Mike locked the door of the guest room right in front of me and said loudly enough for his wife to hear from the kitchen, "Dad, this is not a retirement home. If you want to keep living here, you are going to have to pay rent." I felt something break inside my chest. It was not anger, not even sadness. It was that freezing realization that the boy I had raised, the kid I held in my arms when he had nightmares, the young man who had cried on my shoulder when he lost his first job, simply did not exist anymore. In his place was a cold-eyed stranger, calculating how much he could charge me to sleep on the couch of the house that I had helped buy. But I did not say anything. I just swallowed that dry humiliation, scraping my throat like broken glass, and nodded my head. I saw the satisfied smile form on the corner of my daughter-in-law, Lucy's lips. That little poisonous smile of someone who has just won a battle. She was leaning against the kitchen door frame, arms crossed, watching the scene like someone watching a boring soap opera. Her eyes told me everything. I was a burden, a nuisance, a useless old man eating for free and taking up valuable space in her house. I slowly climbed the stairs because my right knee hurts when I go too fast. 42 years of standing on my feet at the factory will do that. I entered the room that had been mine for barely 6 months, and I started to pack my suitcase. I did not have much: some clothes, my medications, and the framed photograph of my late wife, Mary, the one we took at Yellowstone National Park for our 30th wedding anniversary, when she still smiled in that way that lit up any room. I folded every piece of clothing carefully, just like she had taught me. Mary always used to say that you take care of the small things so you do not lose control of the big ones. While I was closing my suitcase, I heard them laughing in the kitchen. I did not even have to strain my ears. The walls were thin, and they did not even bother to lower their voices. "Finally," Lucy said with an exaggerated tone of relief. "Now we are going to be able to turn that room into the walk-in closet I've always wanted." "That old man was taking up prime real estate in this house?" Mike laughed. My son laughed, and in that laugh there was an agreement, a complicity that cut me deeper than any word ever could. I went downstairs with my suitcase in my hand. They were sitting at the kitchen table. That same table where I ate my breakfast every day for the past 6 months, always in silence because they had made it very clear that my presence was tolerated, not desired. Lucy was drinking her coffee with milk, staring at her phone. Mike was flipping through a home decor magazine. Neither of them looked up when I walked past. "I am going to sleep on the couch in the living room while I sort things out," I said, my voice coming out more choked than I would have liked. Lucy shrugged without taking her eyes off the screen. Mike turned a page in his magazine. "That is fine, Dad, but remember that starting Monday, rent is $800 a month." $800. Almost half of my monthly pension of $1,800. I, who had sold my house in a small town in Ohio. That 3-bedroom house with a big backyard where Mary planted roses and where I raised chickens, sold for $360,000. I had given all that money to Mike to open the construction materials hardware store he had always dreamed of. That night, lying on the living room couch and staring at the cracked ceiling, I remembered everything. I remembered Mike's birth at the General Hospital at 3 in the morning on a hot December night. I remembered how Mary had cried tears of happiness holding that red, wrinkled baby. I remembered all the nights I had stayed awake when he was sick, all the overtime hours I put in at the auto parts plant to pay for his private school, how I had sold my truck to put the down payment on his first motorcycle when he came of age. I remembered the pride I felt when he graduated with a degree in business administration, the first in the family to have a college degree, and I also remembered when he met Lucy 3 years ago at a New Year's Eve party in Miami. From the very first day, I noticed something off about her, the way she looked at our modest house in Ohio with a poorly disguised air of superiority, how she mentally calculated the value of every object, how her eyes sparkled whenever Mike mentioned that I had some money saved up. But I kept my mouth shut because Mike seemed happy, and a father just wants to see his son happy, right? After the wedding, everything changed quickly. Lucy convinced Mike to open the hardware store here in Chicago. It is a booming city, my love. We are going to be rich. She had a prepared answer for everything, always wearing that smile of an illusion peddler. And my son, completely in love and dazzled, believed her. They came to ask me for the money on a Sunday afternoon. They sat with me on the porch. Lucy had a notebook full of numbers and projections. Father-in-law, it is a safe investment. In 2 years, we will pay you everything back, and we will even share the profits with you. I signed the wire transfer the very next day. $360,000. All the money from the sale of the house where I had spent 30 years of my life, where I had raised my son, where I had buried my dog, Buster, at the back of the garden, where Mary had taken her last breath in our bed, holding my hand and asking me to take good care of Mike. I transferred it all because I trusted him, because he was my son, because that is what family does, no? 3 months later, Mary passed away, pancreatic cancer, fast, cruel, and merciless. I was left alone in a house that was far too big for just one person, surrounded by memories that ached in every corner. That was when Mike called. Dad, come live with us. The house here has a guest room. You can help take care of Charlie while Lucy and I work at the store. It will be good for everyone. You cannot stay there all alone in that state. It made sense. I sold a few pieces of furniture that were left. I donated Mary's clothes to the church because I could not look at them without breaking down. I closed up the house and came to Chicago with 2 suitcases and a heart shattered into pieces. The beginning was actually pretty good. I woke up early. I made breakfast for everyone. I took my grandson, Charlie, to school. I picked him up. I helped him with his homework. The 6-year-old boy was the only one who seemed genuinely happy to have me around. Grandpa, are you going to stay here forever? He asked one day with his big eyes full of hope. I wanted to say yes, but something was already whispering. No. Lucy started slowly. First, it was the subtle comments. Father-in-law, did you watch TV all day again? It must be nice not having anything to do, right? Then came the food control. She started strictly counting the groceries. We are tightening our belts, father-in-law. The store has not brought in the expected returns yet. I knew it was a lie because I saw the shopping bags filled with designer clothes she brought home every week, the brand new car they had bought, the latest smartphone Mike loved to show off. After that came the physical modifications to my space. First, they took the television out of the guest room. We need it in the living room, father-in-law, you understand. Then they started using the closet to store their things. My clothes were squeezed into a corner that grew smaller and smaller. One day I came back from a walk in the park and found my things piled up in the laundry room, boxes with my belongings, as if I were a tenant about to be evicted. We are going to remodel the room, Lucy explained without looking me in the eye. It is going to be unusable for a few days. Can you sleep on the living room couch in the meantime? Do not worry, it is just temporary. Temporary turned into a week. A week turned into 2. Nobody spoke of remodeling again. I slept on the couch. I kept my things in boxes in the laundry room. I showered in the half-bath downstairs. Slowly, methodically, they were turning me invisible. The final straw came that Thursday. I was in the kitchen making a cup of tea when I heard Lucy talking on the phone with someone. She did not know I had come back early from the pharmacy. Girl, I cannot stand this old man in my house anymore. He eats, uses electricity, wastes water, takes up space, and contributes nothing. His pension is a joke. It barely covers the pills he takes. I told Mike he needs to make a decision. Either he pays to stay here or he leaves. Simple as that. I stood perfectly still, holding my empty mug, feeling the world slowly spin around me. It was no longer about money. It was about dignity. It was about respect. It was the fact that I had become a burden in my own son's life. That night, Mike came home from work with a closed-off expression. Lucy must have prepared the ground because he got straight to the point. No beating around the bush, not even looking me in the eyes. Dad, we need to talk. Things are tough right now. The store is not doing as well as we hoped. We are behind on bills. There is the car loan. The credit cards are maxed out. He paused and took a deep breath. You cannot keep living here for free. It is not fair to us. So Lucy and I made a decision. Either you chip in $800 a month for rent, or you're going to have to find another place. $800. Almost half of my pension. Money that barely covered my blood pressure medications, my diabetes, the arthritis. Money I needed so I would not be an even heavier burden on their lives. And what if I do not have it? I asked, my voice coming out weak. Mike finally looked at me, but there was no compassion in his eyes. There was only the cold calculation of a man who had learned to value money over blood. Then you were going to have to figure it out, Dad. I am sorry, but that is just how it is. That was when I went upstairs to get my suitcase. That was when I heard them laughing in the kitchen. That was when I decided it was time to stop swallowing humiliations and start taking action. Because there was something my son did not know. Something that even Lucy, with all her calculating cunning, could not even begin to imagine. Something I had kept secret all those months, just watching, mentally noting every offense, every humiliation, every piece of evidence of the greed that consumed this house. Lying on that uncomfortable couch, I grabbed my old cell phone, the dinosaur phone that Mike and Lucy constantly made fun of, and I made a call. It was almost 10 at night, but I knew he would answer. Hello, Attorney Davis. It is Robert Mitchell. I'm sorry to call so late. I need your help. Attorney Davis had been my lawyer for over 20 years, a serious, discreet man of absolute trust. He had helped me sort out the inheritance matters when Mary passed away. He had advised me on the sale of the house. He knew every single detail of my financial life. Robert, what a surprise. Of course. Tell me, what is going on? I explained the situation in broad strokes, without being dramatic, sticking only to the facts. Davis stayed quiet for a few seconds after I finished. I understand. And what exactly do you want me to do? I took a deep breath. I want you to come pick me up tomorrow and bring Mr. Evans, the bank director. I think it is time my son learns the truth about who I really am. Davis chuckled on the other end of the line. It was not an evil laugh, but the laugh of someone finally seeing justice about to be served. I will get everything organized. What time do you want me there? At 9 in the morning. They will be having breakfast. It will be perfect. I will be there. And Robert? Yes? You should have done this months ago. I know, Attorney Davis. I know. I hung up and kept staring at the ceiling, but this time without despair. For the first time in 6 months, I felt something that resembled peace. Or maybe it was just the anticipated satisfaction of seeing the look on their faces when they found out. Because the truth is, I was not the penniless old man they thought I was. I was not the destitute, dependent father with no options. I was Robert Mitchell, 65 years old, a widower, and a pensioner from the auto parts plant, where I had worked for 42 years. But also, and this they did not know, I was a minority shareholder in that same company. Back when the plant was sold to a larger corporate group in 2019, my share brought me $2,400,000. Money that I had invested with the help of Attorney Davis into real estate funds, government bonds, and blue chip stocks. Money that generated at least $14,000 a month for me in dividends and interest. Money that sat safely in an account at another bank, protected, untouchable, and completely secret. I had never told Mike about this because I wanted to see what kind of man he would become. I wanted to know if he would love me even if he thought I had absolutely nothing. I wanted to see if the education I gave him, the values I tried to instill, had truly sunk in. And the answer had been incredibly painful, but crystal clear. My son had failed the test. Worse yet, he did not even realize he was being tested. The house they lived in was not in his name. It was in mine. When I wired them the $360,000 for Mike's hardware store, I made sure the contract was drafted so that I would be the legal owner of the commercial property and the equipment. Mike had signed in a rush, too blinded by the money to pay attention to the fine print. Lucy, as clever as she thought she was, had not noticed it either, and the store itself was registered as a legal partnership. He managed it, but I was the majority shareholder. Everything was perfectly legal, all documented, all signed by their own hands. I had not stolen anything. I had simply protected my assets from people who, as I already suspected, valued money over blood. And tomorrow, when Attorney Davis arrived with Mr. Evans from the bank, when they laid all those papers out on that kitchen table, when my son and my daughter-in-law saw the truth in black and white, I would finally have my definitive answer. I slept more peacefully that night than I had in months. I dreamed of Mary. She was in the backyard of our old house, tending to the white roses she loved so much. When she saw me, she smiled. "You did the right thing, my love," she said. "Protecting is not punishing, it is teaching." I woke up with tears in my eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. The next morning played out just like all the rest. Mike and Lucy had breakfast, chatting about the remodeling they wanted to do in the bedroom, my old bedroom. Charlie ate his cereal while watching cartoons. No one greeted me. I was the ghost of the house, present but invisible, tolerated but not wanted. I drank my black coffee standing up by the kitchen counter, because my spot at the table had been taken over by a stack of Lucy's home decor magazines. At exactly 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Lucy frowned. Who could that be at this hour? Mike went to open the door, still in his bathrobe, clearly annoyed by the interruption. I stayed in the kitchen, but I could hear everything perfectly. "Good morning. I am looking for Mr. Robert Mitchell." It was the formal, polite voice of Attorney Davis. "My dad is inside, but who are you?" "I'm Attorney Davis, and this is Mr. Evans, the director of the bank. We are here at your father's request. May we come in?" The silence that followed was absolutely delicious. I heard Mike's hurried footsteps coming back to the kitchen. "Dad, there is a lawyer and a bank director at the door who want to talk to you. What is going on?" I stood up slowly. I adjusted my simple shirt and walked into the living room with all the calm in the world. Attorney Davis looked impeccable in his gray suit, a leather briefcase in his hand. Mr. Evans, a man in his mid-40s, was holding a tablet. Both of them greeted me with genuine respect. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell." "Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming." Mike was frozen in the middle of the room. Lucy appeared from the kitchen, still in her pajamas, with an expression that mixed deep confusion and the very beginning of something that looked a lot like fear. "Dad, what is happening here?" Attorney Davis answered for me, using that professional tone of voice that left absolutely no room for arguments. "I came here at the request of my client, Mr. Mitchell, to clarify a few important matters regarding his assets and finances. I strongly suggest we all sit down." It was as if he had just announced the end of the world. Lucy and Mike exchanged a look, that silent communication between couples who know something very bad is about to happen. They sat down on the love seat right next to each other, holding hands. I took a seat on the armchair across from them. Attorney Davis remained standing right beside me. Mr. Evans opened up his tablet. "Mike," Davis began, using the calculated patience of a man who is about to dismantle an illusion piece by piece. "Do you know whose name this house is registered under?" Mike blinked, looking thoroughly confused. "It is in my name and my wife's. We financed it when we moved to Chicago." Davis slowly shook his head. "Incorrect. This property, located on the Gold Coast, is officially registered in the public property records exclusively under the name of Robert Mitchell, your father." He opened his briefcase and laid a certified copy of the deed right on the coffee table. Mike picked up the document with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the lines once, twice, 3 times. Lucy snatched the paper right out of his hands and read it as well, her face turning paler by the second. But how? I do not understand. We paid the down payment with the money you gave us, Dad. Yes, I confirmed calmly. You paid the $100,000 down payment that I wired to you. But the purchase contract was drawn up in my name. You both signed as witnesses, not as buyers. Do you remember when I told you it was better to put it in my name because of the financing? Because my credit score was much better? You agreed without even bothering to read what you were signing. The silence was so heavy that I could hear Lucy's rapid breathing. Mike looked as if he had been struck by lightning. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. But the hardware store is ours. Davis smiled that sad smile of someone who's about to deliver even worse news. The builder's supply store, located on Industrial Avenue, is also registered as a legal partnership. Mr. Mitchell owns 51% of the shares, and you, Mike, own 49%. Here is the partnership agreement you signed the day you opened the business. Another document went down onto the table. Mike did not even try to pick it up this time. All the color had drained from his face. Lucy, on the other hand, was turning bright red. I could see the pure fury starting to boil over. The absolute humiliation of having been tricked, of having completely underestimated the foolish old man she thought she had under her thumb. "We have been scammed!" she screamed, jumping to her feet. "This is fraud. We are going to sue. We are going to—" "Ma'am, you are going to sit back down and listen to the rest," Davis cut in with a firm voice that made Lucy take a step back and fall right back onto the couch. "There has been absolutely no fraud here. There were legally binding contracts properly signed by both parties, with witnesses, signature verification, all perfectly legal. If you chose to sign without reading, the responsibility falls entirely on your own shoulders." Mr. Evans, who had remained silent up until this point, stepped forward. "Mike, Lucy, I also came to clarify another matter related to Mr. Mitchell's finances." He turned the tablet around so they could see the screen clearly. "Your father maintains an account at our institution with a current balance of $2,435,000. The figure hung suspended in the air like a bomb. Mike opened his eyes so wide I thought they were going to pop right out of his skull. Lucy made a strangled noise, somewhere between a sob and a choked scream. "That is a lie," Mike muttered. "My dad lives on his pension. He survives on $1,800 a month. He let you believe that." Davis finished the sentence for him. "But the reality is that your father, in addition to his pension, receives approximately $4,000 a month in yields from various investments. Real estate funds, government bonds, blue chip stocks, blue chip. Investments made with the money he received when the auto parts plant was bought out." Davis paused, letting the heavy information sink in, just like an experienced lawyer knows how to do. "Your father had a net worth of over $2 million when he came to live with you, and you treated him like a homeless person. You demanded rent for the very house he owns. You completely humiliated the man who bankrolled your business. And you did all of this while he just sat back, watched, took notes, and waited to see if you would show him even the bare minimum of basic human decency." Mike was crying now. They were not tears of remorse, I noticed. They were tears of sheer shock, of burning shame, of suddenly realizing that he had lost something far more massive than he could ever comprehend. Lucy, however, was calculating. I knew her well enough to spot it immediately. Her eyes darted back and forth rapidly, processing the information, desperately searching for a way out, an angle, some trick to turn the whole situation around. "So what do you want?" she asked. Her voice was ice cold now, completely controlled. "To throw us out of our house? Shut down our business? Leave us out on the street?" I stared at her for a long, heavy moment. "It is not your house, Lucy. It never was. And as for what I want," I paused, picking my words very carefully. "I want my dignity back. I want to be treated like a human being, not like a useless burden. And I want my son to understand that family is not about money. It is about respect. It is about love. Things that the two of you seem to have completely forgotten. Mike finally found his voice, choked and trembling. Dad, I am so sorry. I did not know that. Lucy said it was best if you chipped in, that we were going through financial difficulties. Financial difficulties? I interrupted him, letting a bit of my anger show through for the very first time. You bought a brand new car 3 months ago. Lucy has a walk-in closet stuffed with designer clothes. You eat out at fancy restaurants 3 times a week. What financial difficulties? Mike, the only difficulties in this house were the ones you invented in your own heads just to justify treating me like absolute garbage. Attorney Davis placed a few more documents on the table. Mr. Mitchell asked me to prepare some paperwork. The first one is a dissolution agreement for the Builders Supply Partnership. You have 2 options, Mike. You can buy out your father's share for the $360,000 he initially invested, adjusted for inflation, which brings it to roughly $400,000. Or you can sell your share back to him for that exact same amount. Mike stared at the papers as if they were venomous snakes. I do not have $400,000. Then you will sell your share, Davis stated simply. And regarding the house, your father is willing to let you continue living here on the condition that you sign a lease agreement at the current market rate, which would be approximately $3,600 a month for a property of this size in this neighborhood. Lucy exploded. $3,600? That is absurd. This is highway robbery. Davis looked at her with pure professional coldness. That is the market rate, ma'am. In fact, I am being quite generous. It could easily be more. And if you do not agree to it, your father-in-law can initiate eviction proceedings immediately for termination of a free use agreement. You would have 30 days to vacate the premises. The air completely left Lucy's lungs, like a deflating balloon. Mike had his head buried in his hands, openly sobbing. Charlie appeared in the living room doorway, terrified by the sound of his dad crying. Grandpa, why is Daddy crying? I stood up and walked over to my grandson, kneeling in front of him despite the pain in my knee. That sweet 6-year-old boy was the only pure thing left in this entire house. Sometimes adults cry when they realize they made big mistakes, my boy, but everything is going to be all right. I kissed his forehead and gently told him to go back to his room. When I stood back up, I faced my son directly. Mike, I gave you everything, not just my money. I gave you my time, my dedication, my love. I worked double shifts so you could have a much better life than I did. I sold the house where your mother passed away, the place holding 35 years of our beautiful memories, just to make your dream come true. And how do you thank me? By turning me into an unwanted tenant on my own property. My voice broke a little, but I pushed through. You forgot exactly who I am. You forgot where you came from. You let this woman, I pointed straight at Lucy, poison your heart with pure greed. Do not talk about my wife like that, Mike yelled, jumping up. It was the very first time he showed any real emotion other than sheer shock. She is not responsible for any of this. She is responsible for all of it, I replied with absolute calm. She started all those poisonous little comments. She convinced you to demand rent from me. She turned this house into a living hell for me. And you, like a complete coward, just let her do it. Worse than that, you agreed with her. Mike opened his mouth to argue, but Davis quickly intervened. Gentlemen, if we could please return to the documents. Mr. Mitchell has one more issue to resolve today. Mr. Evans pulled up another screen on his tablet. I also came here to officially inform you that Mr. Mitchell requested a preventive freeze on all financial movements in the joint checking account he maintained with Mike at our local branch. We flagged 3 unauthorized transfer attempts over the last 2 months, totaling $46,000. Mike turned deathly pale once again. Lucy stared a hole into the floor. Were you stealing from me? I asked, feeling far more sadness than anger. It was not stealing, Lucy shot back defensively. You are a partner in the store. It was company money. It was money from Mr. Mitchell's personal account. which he kept joint with his son exclusively for medical emergencies. Mr. Evans corrected her smoothly. The transfers were wired directly into Lucy's personal account. The funds were then spent at high-end clothing boutiques, expensive restaurants, and a luxury beauty salon. Very difficult to classify as legitimate business expenses. That was the absolute final straw. I looked at the two of them sitting on that couch I had helped to buy, in this massive house that I had financed, completely surrounded by the comfort that my hard-earned money had provided, and I felt a heavy mix of pity and pure disgust. Attorney Davis, you can prepare all the final documents. I want the total dissolution of the partnership. I want the lease agreement finalized. I want the joint bank account permanently closed. And I want a complete itemized inventory of absolutely everything in this house, so we know exactly what is mine and what belongs to them. Everything is already prepared. Davis pulled a thick folder out of his briefcase. We just need the signatures. Mike stared at the heavy stack of legal documents, and then he looked up at me. And what if we refuse to sign? Then I will immediately initiate the appropriate legal proceedings, I answered without missing a beat. Eviction, forced dissolution of the business partnership, and a full criminal investigation for embezzlement. It will take a lot longer. It will be incredibly expensive for you both, and it will be humiliating. The choice is yours. Lucy grabbed the pen with so much force I genuinely thought she was going to snap it in half. She signed every single document with furious, aggressive scribbles. Mike hesitated over every page. His tears smeared some of his signatures, but he signed them. When they finally finished, Davis gathered everything methodically. Perfect. You have 30 days to liquidate your portion of the business partnership, Mike. After that deadline, Mr. Mitchell will assume complete, total control of Builder's Supply. As for the rent, your very first payment is due on the 5th of next month. Any delay exceeding 10 days will result in an immediate eviction notice. He tucked everything safely back into his leather briefcase. Gentlemen, my work here is done. Mr. Mitchell, shall we go? I took one final look around that living room, where I had spent 6 miserable months feeling completely invisible. That kitchen where I had choked down my black coffee in utter silence every single morning. That uncomfortable couch where I had slept while being treated like a worthless vagrant. Let's go. I walked toward the front door. Attorney Davis and Mr. Evans followed right behind me. Mike called out to me when I was almost out the door. Dad, where are you going? I stopped walking, but I did not turn around to look at him. To a place where I do not have to ask for permission just to exist. To a place where I am respected, far away from the two of you. But you are my father. I was your father, I corrected him, finally turning around to meet his gaze. Right now I am just Robert Mitchell, the legal owner of this property and the majority shareholder of your business, nothing more. You cannot do this. You cannot just leave. I can, and I am going to. You taught me that family is all about money, not love. So I am going to treat you exactly how you treat business partners, coldly, professionally, and with absolutely zero emotional involvement. Lucy stood up, and for the very first time, I saw something that genuinely looked like sheer desperation in her eyes. And the hardware store, how are we supposed to run it if you have all the control? I've appointed a professional manager, Davis answered for me. Someone highly competent who will ensure the business operates by the book. You will both continue working there, but from now on you will be under strict supervision, and all profits will be divided proportionally based on the shares. 51% for Mr. Mitchell, 49% for you. The unauthorized loans are officially over. I walked out of that house without ever looking back. I got into Attorney Davis's sleek black Mercedes, and for the first time in 6 long months, I breathed in the fresh air. Mr. Evans followed behind us in his own car. As we drove away from the Gold Coast, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Mike standing motionless on the sidewalk, staring blankly, probably still trying to process the massive earthquake that had just destroyed his entire life. Where to now? Davis asked. To the Grand Plaza Hotel downtown. I already booked a room for a few days while I look for an apartment to rent. Rent, Robert? You have over $2 million in liquid investments. You could easily buy a beautiful condo in cash. I smiled, a real smile, for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. I do not want any more properties, Attorney Davis. I want freedom. I want the ability to pack up and leave if I do not like a place. No bureaucracy. No heavy anchors tying me down. I have learned that the fewer roots you put down, the freer you truly are. Davis nodded, completely understanding my reasoning. We drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes before he spoke up again. Do you honestly think they will manage to pay the rent? I do not know, and honestly, I do not care. If they do not pay it, I will evict them and rent the house out to someone else. Maybe to a family that will actually appreciate having a good roof over their heads. And the hardware store? The store is running just fine despite their sheer incompetence. With a professional manager taking the reins, it will bring in even more profit. And if they do not like working under someone else's supervision, they can simply quit. I will just hire other people. You have grown hard, Robert. No, Attorney Davis. I just stopped being a fool. There is a big difference. We arrived at the hotel. It was a simple but immaculately clean place. Functional. The room had a queen-sized bed, a television, and a small bathroom. It was absolutely perfect for me. I set my suitcase down on the carpet and sat on the edge of the mattress, feeling the heavy burden of 6 months of constant humiliation finally lift off my shoulders. Davis stood in the doorway. Do you want me to handle everything from here on out? The rent collection, the business oversight, all the legal notices? Yes. I do not want any more direct contact with them. Everything goes through you or Mr. Harrison, the new store manager. If they absolutely need to speak with me, they can send a formal email. The father and son story is over. Right now, it is strictly business. Understood? Understood. And Robert? Yes? You did the right thing. I know it hurts, but you made the right call. No father ever deserves to be treated like that. After Davis left, I stayed alone in that quiet hotel room. I turned the television on, more to have some background noise than to actually watch anything. I thought about Mary. I thought about how incredibly proud she would be of me for finally standing my ground. But I also thought about how utterly heartbroken she would be to see the kind of man our son had turned into. I cried a little bit, not too much because I had already cried far too many tears over these last few months, but just enough to cleanse my soul. That night, I slept in a real bed for the first time in weeks, without the awful, uncomfortable couch, without the humming noise of that old kitchen refrigerator, and without the constant dread of waking up just to find more humiliation waiting for me at the breakfast table. I slept deeply, heavily, a truly restorative sleep. The very next day, I started looking for apartments to rent. I wanted something small in a quiet, peaceful neighborhood, close to a park where I could take my morning walks. I found a lovely 500-square-foot loft in Lincoln Park. It came fully furnished with a small balcony that overlooked a beautiful tree-lined square. $2,400 a month in rent. Perfect. I signed the lease that exact same day. I moved in the following morning. It was not like I had a ton of things to move anyway. 2 suitcases full of clothes, the framed picture of Mary, and my medications. I went out and bought the basics. Brand new bedding, soft luxury towels, and a really nice electric coffee maker. For the first time in a very long time, I was building a space that was truly, entirely mine. The days that followed felt strange. I would wake up and it would take me a few seconds to remember exactly where I was. There was nobody ignoring me at the breakfast table. There were no cruel, venomous comments. There was no heavy tension thick in the air. It was just silence. But it was a peaceful, deeply desired, and chosen silence. Davis would call me every couple of days with updates. Mike and Lucy were desperately trying to run the hardware store under the strict supervision of the new manager, Mr. Harrison. He was a highly competent, no-nonsense man who did not accept cheap excuses or lazy shortcuts. Sales had actually improved quite a bit. The house rent arrived late. On the 10th, Davis sent out the very first official warning notice. On the 15th, Mike finally deposited the money, probably by selling something off or begging someone for a loan. I did not bother trying to find out. I started making friends in my new building. Mrs. Margaret, a 68-year-old lady who lived in the apartment right next door, invited me over to have coffee on her balcony. We talked for hours. She was also a widow. She had 3 children who lived in different cities, and they called her every single Sunday. "I'm very lucky," she said warmly. "My kids respect me." I just smiled politely and said, "Yes, you truly are." 2 months after I walked out of that massive house on the Gold Coast, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer it, but some gut feeling made me press the green button. "Hello?" It was Mike. His voice sounded different. More mature, perhaps. Definitely a lot more tired. "Dad, it is me." Silence. "I know you do not want to talk to me, and I completely understand. But I had to call. I had to tell you that I am so sorry. Truly." "Sorry for what exactly, Mike? For humiliating me? For demanding rent in my own house? For letting your wife treat me like absolute trash? Or are you just sorry because you finally found out I was not the penniless old man you thought I was?" I heard a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. "For both things. Because I was a horrible son, and because I was a complete idiot. I let the money completely blind me. I let Lucy convince me of things that I knew deep down were wrong. And now? What has changed now? Everything. I divorced Lucy." That piece of news actually caught me by surprise. How did that happen? "She was cheating on me, Dad. I found out 2 weeks ago. She was sleeping with the branch manager of our second hardware store location in Naperville, the guy she insisted so hard that we hire. She was also siphoning money from the accounts, but in small enough amounts that I never noticed. When I finally confronted her about it, she told me she deserved it, because she had to suffer through living in a rented house and working at a store that did not even belong to her." I closed my eyes. I did not feel any twisted satisfaction from hearing the news, just a deep, profound sadness. "I'm sorry, Mike." "Do not be sorry. You were right about her from the very beginning. I was just way too stupid to see it." Silence fell over the line again. "Dad, I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I ruined absolutely everything. But I wanted you to know that every single day I wake up hating myself for what I did to you. I wake up remembering the look on your face when we humiliated you, and I hate myself even more. Mike, let me stop you right there, please. I'm not asking to go back to being your son. I do not deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I finally understood. I understood what you did, the test, the legal protection, all of it. And I understood that I failed you miserably." His voice cracked heavily. "Would Mom be ashamed of me?" "Your mother loved you unconditionally," I said, feeling my own hot tears welling up. "Just like I do. The love never stops, Mike. But trust, respect, those things take a very long time to rebuild." "I know, and I'm not asking you to rebuild anything. I just wanted you to know that I learned the lesson in the most painful way possible. But I did learn it. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to keep working at the store, mister. Harrison is a tough boss, but he is incredibly fair. I am actually learning a lot from him. And I am going to keep paying the rent on time, obviously. It is the house where my son lives. I have to provide stability for him." "How is Charlie doing?" "He misses his grandpa. He asks about you every single day." My heart tightened painfully in my chest. That sweet little boy was completely innocent in all of this. Tell him that Grandpa is doing well and that I think about him all the time, too. Can I bring him to see you someday?" "Not right away. Only when you feel you are truly ready." I thought about it for a long, heavy moment. "Maybe someday, Mike, but not right now. It is all still too fresh. It still hurts way too much. I understand. And Dad? Yes? Thank you for answering the phone. It is already far more than I deserved. I hung up the phone and stared at the screen for a long time. Attorney Davis was absolutely right. I had done the right thing. But why did doing the right thing have to hurt so damn much? Another month went by. Life continued in its quiet, comfortable routine. Morning walks in the park, nice lunches at simple neighborhood restaurants, afternoons spent reading on the couch or watching television, dinners with Mrs. Margaret or eating alone, with no rush and no judgment. It was a peaceful life, but perhaps a bit too peaceful. I was starting to feel like something was missing, a sense of purpose perhaps, or simple companionship, or maybe both. That was when I met Helen. She was 63 years old, a retired high school literature teacher. She had been a widow for 4 years. We met right in the park. She was sitting on a bench reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and I casually mentioned that it was one of my all-time favorite books. We started talking, first about novels, then about life, about our deep losses, and about starting over. She had a daughter who lived in Ohio and came to visit her every couple of months. "My Betty is wonderful," Helen would say with that bright sparkle in her eyes that only a proud mother has. "She calls me every single day. She worries about me. She includes me in all of her big decisions. I am incredibly lucky." I started running into Helen at the park every day. Then those casual run-ins turned into grabbing coffee at a charming little cafe nearby. Then it turned into lunches and eventually dinners. She knew my whole history with Mike. I told her everything on a rainy afternoon when we were trapped inside a bookstore, waiting for the heavy storm to pass. Helen listened to me without interrupting once, gently holding my hand whenever my voice began to falter. When I finally finished, she just smiled softly and said, "You're a very strong man, Robert, and you did exactly what you had to do. But do not let all that bitter resentment completely harden your heart. There is still plenty of time for new stories." New stories. I really liked the sound of that. 3 months after I had walked out of that massive house on the Gold Coast, I was actively building a brand new life. Not a perfect life, but a life with true dignity. A life where I woke up without fear. A life where I was genuinely respected. A life where for the first time in a very long time, I was actually happy. The Builder's Supply hardware store was absolutely thriving under Mr. Harrison's management. Profits had increased by 40%. My share of the dividends had already surpassed my wildest expectations. Mike kept working there, always punctual, always dedicated, probably trying to prove something to himself, or maybe to me. I do not really know. We did not speak. Attorney Davis told me that Mike asked about me from time to time, that he lived completely alone in a tiny, cramped apartment after finalizing his messy divorce with Lucy, that Charlie spent every weekend with him, and that Mike was genuinely trying hard to be a better father. A small part of me wanted to believe that he had truly changed. Another part, the part that still bled whenever I remembered all the cruel humiliations, remained incredibly skeptical. One Saturday afternoon, 6 months after everything had gone down, I was sitting in the square with Helen when I saw a little boy running straight toward me. It was Charlie, a bit taller, his hair a little longer, but unmistakably my sweet grandson. "Grandpa!" He threw himself into my arms with so much force that we almost both tumbled over. I hugged him tight, feeling the hot tears come without my permission. "Charlie, my boy, look at how much you have grown!" Mike was standing a few feet away, hesitating, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. He made a slight movement as if he wanted to approach, but he stopped himself. Helen touched my arm gently. "I'm going to take a little walk. I will meet you back here in half an hour." I nodded at her with deep gratitude. Charlie was chattering nonstop, telling me all about school, his new friends, his favorite video games. He was happy. That was clear as day. Mike finally walked over. "I'm so sorry for just showing up like this. I did not plan it. We were just walking through the park, and Charlie spotted you. He took off running before I could even catch him. It is fine. We stood there, the three of us, in a silence that was not exactly comfortable, but it was not hostile either. Finally, Mike spoke up. You look really good, Dad. You look happy. It was not a question, it was an observation. I am. I really am happy. Charlie tugged hard on my hand. Grandpa, are you going to come back to live with us again? Before I could answer, Mike jumped in. No, buddy. Grandpa has his own house now, a place he really likes. But maybe we can visit him every once in a while, if he allows it. I looked at my son. There was something remarkably different about him. The harsh arrogance had disappeared. The coldness had been completely replaced by humility, by sincere, heavy regret. I was not entirely sure yet. Maybe, I replied carefully, someday. That someday slowly turned into monthly visits. First, it was only Charlie coming over to spend a few hours with me and Helen. The two of them got along great right from the start. Then occasionally Mike would come along too. Our conversations were cautious and very superficial. We talked about the hardware store, the weather, and Charlie. Never about the past. Never about what had happened in that massive house. It was as if there was a silent agreement between us. It had happened. It had left incredibly deep scars, but staring directly at the wounds would only make them bleed all over again. 1 year passed, then 2. Life went on. Helen and I had become virtually inseparable. We did not live together, as we both valued our personal independence far too much for that. But we had dinner together almost every single night. We traveled, we shared books, laughter, and comfortable, quiet silences. She eventually met Mike and Charlie. She was kind and gentle, but she maintained a certain polite distance. I do not want to step in where I have not been invited, she explained to me. This is your story, your own process. Mike continued working at Builder's Supply. Mr. Harrison promoted him to sales director. Apparently, he was doing very well. He paid the rent strictly on time every single month. He never asked for a reduction. He never once complained. During one visit, he mentioned that he was dating someone, a nurse named Patty, divorced, with no children. She is completely different from Lucy, Dad. Simple, hardworking, honest. I just said, I hope you are happy, Mike, and I truly meant it. Today, 3 years after the day Attorney Davis knocked on that door and changed absolutely everything, I am sitting on the balcony of my loft, drinking my morning coffee and watching the sun rise over Chicago. Helen is still fast asleep in the bedroom. She stayed the night after we had dinner at a new restaurant in our neighborhood. In the pocket of my bathrobe is my cell phone. There's a text message from Mike from late last night that I still have not answered. Dad, Patty and I are getting married next month. It will be a small ceremony, only close family. I know I do not deserve it, but I would really love it if you were there. I reread the message for the 10th time. A part of me still carries the heavy resentment, the vivid memory of that night sleeping on the living room couch, the looks of pure disgust, the incredibly cruel words. But another part, a part that has slowly grown during these 3 years of peace, thinks differently, thanks to therapy. Yes, I started going to therapy, and thanks to long, deep conversations with Helen. That healed part of me understands that holding onto anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. What are you going to do? Helen asks, appearing on the balcony with a warm cup of tea, still wearing her pajamas. I think I'm going to go, I replied, genuinely surprising myself. I think it is finally time to truly forgive, not for his sake, but for mine. Helen smiles softly and kisses my forehead. You are a very wise man, Robert Mitchell. I type out my reply. I will be there. Congratulations to you both. Mike's response comes through in a matter of seconds. Thank you, Dad. It means more to me than you could ever imagine. I set the phone down and look out at the sunrise again. My life is far from perfect. I still carry scars. I still wake up some nights remembering the harsh humiliations, and I feel the hot anger tighten in my chest. But I learned that forgiving is not forgetting. It is actively choosing not to let the past poison the present. I learned that dignity is not something anyone can just take away from you. It is something you choose to keep, even when everything around you conspires to make you lose it. I learned that true family is not tied together by blood. It is united by mutual respect, by sincere love, by actions and not just empty words. And I learned, perhaps the most important lesson of all, that it is absolutely never too late to start over. At 65 years old, I have a wonderful girlfriend, a grandson who adores me, assets that give me true financial security, and a profound peace of mind that I would not trade for anything in the world. My son completely failed the test I gave him, but he also learned a lot from his massive failure, and perhaps that is what separates true human beings from lost souls: the ability to learn, to change, to actively grow, even after making the most terrible, destructive mistakes. I do not know if our relationship will ever go back to the way it was before. Probably not. I will probably never again be the father he calls every single day, the one he visits every Sunday, the one he hugs without a second thought. That specific father died the very day they made me sleep on that couch. But maybe we can build something brand new? Not a father and son relationship in the traditional sense, but a solid connection between two grown men who respect each other, who openly acknowledge the heavy mistakes of the past, and who actively choose to move forward without carrying so much extra weight on their shoulders. And if we do not manage to do that, if the deep wounds are just too profound to heal, well, that is perfectly fine too, because I finally learned that my own personal happiness does not depend on anyone but myself. I learned that I can be perfectly fine, be truly happy, be totally at peace, even without the approval or the love of the people I once thought would be a permanent fixture in my life. The sun is now completely over the horizon, a brand new day. One more day of recovered dignity, of hard-won peace, of a life lived entirely on my own terms. Helen calls me inside for breakfast. I walk toward her with a warm smile, because if there is one vital thing this entire grueling process has taught me, it is that life is far too short to waste away in bitter resentment, but way too long to live without basic dignity. And I chose dignity. I chose self-respect. I chose inner peace. And if that cost me my relationship with my only son for a while, if it temporarily turned me into the cruel villain of his own story for a few years, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, when I rest my head on my pillow every single night, I can do so knowing that I will never again sleep on anyone's uncomfortable couch, that I will never again swallow pure humiliation in total silence, that I will never again allow anyone to treat me like I am somehow less than what I truly am. And that, I have discovered, is worth infinitely more than any forced reconciliation, more than any completely unearned forgiveness, more than any so-called family that only begins to value you once they find out exactly how much you are worth on paper. True family values you when you have absolutely nothing to your name. True family respects you, even when they are not legally obligated to do so. True family does not need a high-priced lawyer knocking on their front door to finally learn the true meaning of the word dignity. I finish my coffee, gently kiss Helen, and get ready for yet another day in this brand new life I built, right over the smoking ruins of my old one. A life where I am not exactly rich in close family relationships, but I am incredibly wealthy in peace, in deep self-respect, and in genuine true love. And I have discovered that this is what actually matters in the end, because you can have all the money in the entire world, all the extended family in the world, all the material possessions you could ever possibly imagine. But if you do not have your dignity, if you do not have an ounce of self-respect, if you cannot look yourself straight in the mirror and truly love the person you see looking back at you, you have absolutely nothing. I look at myself in the mirror today and I see a man who survived a brutal storm, a man who chose his own dignity when it would have been so much easier to just accept pathetic crumbs of fake affection, a man who taught the absolute hardest lesson a father can ever teach his son. That respect is never optional. It is fundamental. And if my son finally learned that tough lesson, then that is wonderful. If he did not learn it, well, patience. Because in the end, everyone is entirely responsible for their own unique path, for their own difficult choices, and for their own heavy consequences. I made my choices. I accepted my consequences. And I am completely at peace with both. I remember now, as I shave in front of the mirror in my Lincoln Park bathroom, all the times Mary used to tell me, "Robert, you are entirely too good. People are going to take advantage of you." And I would always reply, "I would rather they take advantage of me than turn into someone who is constantly suspicious of everyone." But Mary was absolutely right about one thing. There is a massive difference between being a good person and being a complete fool, between being generous and being a welcome mat for people to wipe their dirty shoes on, between deeply loving your family and actively allowing them to completely destroy you. I learned that vital difference in the most painful way imaginable. But I did learn it. Helen and I eat breakfast together, pancakes and eggs that she made from scratch, freshly brewed coffee, and some sweet pastries from the bakery down the street. We chat about her daughter, Betty, who is coming to visit her next week from Ohio. We talk about the classic book we are currently reading, The Great Gatsby. We just sit and talk about life. We do not talk about Mike. We do not talk about the rapidly approaching wedding. Helen knows exactly when to press an issue and exactly when to give me some necessary space. It is just one of the many reasons why I love her so much. After breakfast, I go out for a nice walk. It is a Saturday, so the local park is packed with families. I see tired parents pushing their young kids on the playground swings, grandparents buying ice cream for their excited grandkids, young couples walking down the paved paths, holding hands tightly, and for the first time in years, I do not feel that sharp pang of deep pain when I see happy families. I do not feel any toxic envy. I do not feel any lingering bitterness. I only feel peace. Perhaps because I have finally understood that happiness is not a final destination. It is a daily decision. It is not something that just magically happens to you. It is something you have to actively choose every single day. Sometimes every single hour, sometimes every single minute. I chose to be truly happy, despite everything that went down. I chose to build something brand new instead of crying endlessly over what was permanently lost. I chose to forgive, not because they somehow deserved it, but because I deserved to be completely free from the crushing weight of pure resentment. I sit down on my favorite park bench, the one right under the big oak tree. I look up at the bright blue Chicago sky. I think about the incredibly long road I have traveled since that awful night on the living room couch. If someone had told me 3 years ago that I would be sitting right here, genuinely happy, completely at peace, and deeply in love all over again, I would never have believed them. The raw pain was too fresh. The betrayal ran too deep. The humiliation was far too recent. But time, that great healer of all emotional wounds, did its steady work. It did not magically erase the scars, but it did make them much softer. It made them just one part of my ongoing story, instead of my entire story. I think about Mike's upcoming wedding. I think about watching him marry Patty. I wonder if I will be able to stand there without feeling all of that intense pain all over again. I wonder if I will truly be able to look my son in the eyes without seeing the cruel man who humiliated me. And the answer, I quickly discover, is yes, I can. Not because I have simply forgotten, but because I have actively chosen not to let it define me anymore. Mike made some truly terrible, unforgivable mistakes. He hurt me more deeply than anyone else ever has. But he is also genuinely trying to change. And maybe, just maybe, that sincere effort deserves to be recognized. It does not mean we will ever go back to being what we once were. That specific relationship died a long time ago. But maybe we can build something brand new, something very different, something based on mutual, earned respect instead of blind obligation. My cell phone buzzes in my pocket. It is a text message from Charlie. He learned how to text earlier this year, and now he sends me one almost every single day. Grandpa, I played soccer today. I scored a goal. I miss you. I smile warmly. That sweet little boy is the only pure, untainted light in this entire messy story. I type back quickly. Congratulations, champ. I miss you too. I will see you very soon. Charlie is not to blame for any of this. He just has a grandfather who loves him unconditionally, and a father who is desperately learning how to be a better man. And perhaps that is enough. I think about all the tough lessons I have learned over these past 3 years, about cold, hard cash, about true family, about genuine self-worth, about how sometimes the very people you love the most are the exact ones who can hurt you the deepest, about how love without fundamental respect is really just abuse in disguise, about how it is absolutely never too late to start fresh. If I could somehow talk to the Robert from 3 years ago, the sad, broken man sleeping on that uncomfortable couch and feeling completely invisible, I would tell him, hang in there. It is going to hurt. It is going to hurt a lot. But on the other side of all that pain, there is something much better. There is dignity. There is peace. There is a life that is truly worth living. I would tell him, do not be afraid to defend your own worth. Do not be afraid to walk away from incredibly toxic situations, even if those situations involve your own flesh and blood. I would tell him, your true value does not depend on how much money you have or do not have in the bank. Your value is inherent. You are valuable simply because you exist. And absolutely no one has the right to make you feel like you are anything less. But that Robert would never have believed me. He had to live through it. He had to walk directly through the blazing fire to come out completely transformed on the other side. I walk back to the apartment. Helen is sitting out on the balcony reading. She sees me and smiles. That warm, familiar smile that constantly reminds me that yes, life can be good again. That yes, it is entirely possible to love again after a devastating loss. That yes, it is possible to trust again after a brutal betrayal. How was your walk? She asks softly. Revealing, I answer, taking a seat right next to her, thinking about the upcoming wedding, among several other things. Helen carefully closes her book and looks at me with those wise eyes that have seen so much of life. Do you know what the absolute bravest thing you can do is, Robert? What? To go to that wedding, to look your son right in the eyes, and to choose forgiveness one more time. Not because he necessarily deserves it, but because you deserve to be free. You are right, as always. That night I write in my personal journal. It is a good habit I picked up in therapy and have maintained ever since. I write about the day, about my swirling thoughts, about my complicated feelings. I write, today I finally decided that I will attend Mike's wedding, not for him, but for me, because I need to prove to myself that I have healed enough to be in the exact same room with him without completely breaking down, because I want little Charlie to see that adults can make terrible, destructive mistakes and still somehow find their way back to each other, because I want to be the kind of man that Mary would be incredibly proud to know. I close the journal and get ready for bed. Helen is already fast asleep under the covers. I lie down next to her, and for the 1,000th time, I am deeply thankful that she appeared in my life right when I needed her the absolute most. Tomorrow is Sunday. Charlie is coming over to visit me. We are going to go to the Field Museum of Natural History, his absolute favorite place. We are going to eat deep dish pizza at our favorite spot. We are going to laugh and play and make some wonderful new memories. And maybe, just maybe, Mike will come to pick him up at the end of the day. And maybe, just maybe, we will look each other in the eyes and actually see a clear path forward, not a desperate return to the past. The past is dead and buried, but perhaps a very different future, one built on brutal honesty instead of endless unfulfilled expectations, one built entirely on hard-earned respect instead of assumed, unsaid obligations. As I slowly drift off to sleep, I think about all the people out there who are currently going through something very similar. All the loving parents who have been casually discarded by their own children. All the people who have been treated like heavy burdens instead of absolute blessings. And I want to tell them, you are not alone. Your inherent worth does not decrease just because someone else lacks the ability to see it. You deserve true respect. You deserve basic dignity. You deserve genuine, real love, not just thinly disguised tolerance. And if you have to walk away just to protect your own peace of mind, do it. It is not abandonment. It is vital self-care. It is not petty revenge. It is basic survival. Because at the end of the day, when all the lights go out and you are sitting there all alone with your own thoughts, the only approval you truly need is your own. And I, Robert Mitchell, finally have mine. I sleep very deeply that night, with absolutely no nightmares, with zero regrets, only with the profound peace that comes from knowing I did the right thing, even when the right thing was the absolute hardest thing to do. And when the time finally comes for me to close my eyes for the very last time, I will be able to do so, knowing that I lived strictly by my own values, that I never once betrayed who I truly am, that I never accepted being anything less than what I truly deserve. That is what real freedom is. The freedom to simply be exactly who you are, without any apologies, without accepting pathetic crumbs, without sleeping on other people's couches when you are the rightful owner of the house. This is my story, the story of a man who was tested to his absolute breaking point, who was humiliated in the very house he helped pay for, who was treated like a worthless burden by his own flesh and blood. But it is also the story of a man who got back up, who fought to recover his dignity, who consciously chose peace over endless bitterness. It is not a story with a traditional happy ending. It does not end with warm, tearful hugs and a complete, perfect reconciliation, but it ends with something so much better. It ends with a man who is truly free, dignified, deeply respected, and loved by the people who actually matter. And if you are listening to this, if you are going through something very similar, if you are currently sleeping on the couch of your own life while other people take up all your space, please know this: you deserve so much more. You deserve deep respect. You deserve basic dignity. You deserve to wake up every single day knowing that you are not a burden, that you are not an obstacle in someone else's way, that your existence is not a favor someone is doing for you. You have real value. You are incredibly important. You deserve genuine, true love, not just mass tolerance. And if you have to pack up and leave, then leave. If you have to start all over again, then start over. If you have to prove to yourself that you are so much more than what they think you are, then prove it. But do it strictly for yourself, not out of petty revenge, not out of blinding anger. Do it for self-love, for dignity, for absolute respect for who you are and everything you have survived just to get here. Sunday arrives with a perfectly clear sky. Charlie knocks on my apartment door at 10 o'clock, sharp, punctual as always. I open the door and there he is, with his Spider-Man backpack and that bright smile that absolutely melts my heart. "Grandpa!" He throws himself right into my arms. Mike is standing right behind him, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets, looking incredibly nervous. "Good morning, Dad." "Good morning, Mike." Come on in. It is the very first time I've invited him inside since everything went down. I can see the genuine surprise flash in his eyes. We walk in. Helen has prepared hot coffee and fresh pastries. Charlie is already in the living room playing with the toy cars I keep specifically for him. Mike and I sit out on the balcony with our mugs of coffee. The silence is very uncomfortable at first. The apartment looks really nice, he finally says. I like it. It is small, but it is mine. He nods slowly. He fully understands the heavy meaning behind those exact words. Dad, about the wedding? I'm going to go, Mike. I already decided. His eyes instantly light up. Really? Really? Helen is going to come with me. I would very much like to meet her formally, and Patty is so anxious to meet you. I'm sure she is. Another silence falls between us, but this one is very different. It is much less tense. How is the hardware store going? I ask. Good. Really good, actually. Mr. Harrison has taught me so much. I honestly learned more in these 3 years working with him than I did in my entire college career. I am very glad to hear that. Sales increased by 60% this year. We are actually thinking about opening a second location. Really? Mr. Harrison says the business is more than ready to expand. Of course, we would absolutely need your formal approval as the majority shareholder. I look at him. He is waiting for my answer with a mix of eager hope and deep nervousness. Do you have a solid business plan? Yes. Mr. Harrison prepared it. I can send it over to you if you want to review it. Send it to me. Attorney Davis and I will review it. Thank you, Dad. We sip our coffee in silence. It is a very comfortable silence this time around. How is Patty doing? I ask. Mike's face instantly lights up when he talks about her. She is absolutely wonderful, Dad. Completely different from, well, you know. She really keeps me grounded. She calls me out whenever I'm acting like a fool. She fully supports me when I'm doing the right thing. And she absolutely adores Charlie. I'm very glad you found someone good. Me too. And Dad, she knows the whole story. I told her everything. What I did to you. What happened. Absolutely everything. And she says she is just happy that I finally realized it. She says that any woman who truly loves me would want me to have a healthy relationship with my father. I feel a tight knot form in my throat. She sounds like a very good woman. She really is. Charlie suddenly appears on the balcony. Grandpa, are we going to the museum now? Of course we are, champ. Just let me finish my coffee. Mike stands up from his chair. I will leave you two to it. I will come pick him up at 6 o'clock. Is that okay? Perfect. He leans in and, completely surprising me, gives me a quick, tight hug. Thank you for letting me try again, Dad. I do not say a single word. I just nod. I simply do not trust my own voice in this moment. Charlie and I spend the entire day at the Field Museum of Natural History. He is absolutely fascinated by the dinosaur fossils. He asks me 1,000 different questions that I try to answer as best as I can. Later, we eat deep dish pizza at our favorite restaurant in Lincoln Park. He tells me all about school, his little friends, his brand new teacher. Grandpa, is it true that you and Daddy did not talk before? The sudden question catches me completely off guard. Yes, buddy, it is true. Why? Sometimes adults make big mistakes, and it takes a lot of time to fix them. But you guys are okay now, right? I saw Daddy hug you today. I smile softly. We are working on it, Charlie, little by little. Good, because I missed you a whole lot when I did not see you. He squeezes my heart. I missed you too, champ. At 6 o'clock on the dot, Mike knocks on the door. Charlie runs over to hug his legs. Daddy, we went to the museum and we ate pizza, and Grandpa bought me a book all about dinosaurs. Really? That is awesome. Mike looks up at me. Thank you for spending the day with him. You do not have to thank me. He is my grandson. It is always a pleasure. Dad, would you like to have dinner with us sometime this week? Patty really wants to meet you before the wedding. I think about it for a long moment. All right. Tell me when. Wednesday? We could go out to a restaurant. or we could cook at the house. Whatever you prefer. A restaurant is fine. Neutral ground. He smiles sadly. He completely understands. There is an Italian place in the Gold Coast that Patty really likes. Does that sound good to you? Perfect. Wednesday arrives incredibly fast. Helen insists on tagging along. You're going to need backup, she says with a warm smile. They are not the enemy, Helen. I know. But even so, we arrive at the restaurant 5 minutes early. Mike is already there with Patty. She is exactly how Mike described her. Simple, with a very genuine smile and kind eyes. She stands up the second she sees us. Mr. Mitchell, it is such an honor to finally meet you. Mike has told me so much about you. I hope not everything, I say with a small, polite smile. Everything, she says honestly. The good and the very bad. That is exactly why I have so much respect for you. We sit down at the table. Helen and Patty hit it off immediately, chatting easily about books and gardening. Mike is quiet, clearly nervous. Patty gently takes his hand. Mike told me what happened, she says directly to me, and I want you to know that I would never allow him to treat me like that, and I would never allow him to treat anyone else like that, either. I'm very glad to hear that. I also want you to know that I completely respect the firm boundaries you have set. I understand that trust has to be earned, not simply demanded, and Mike is working very hard to earn yours back. I look across the table at my son. He has tears in his eyes. I'm really trying, Dad. I truly am. I see that, Mike. The dinner continues smoothly. We talk about the wedding, about their plans for the future. Patty talks about her long shifts at the hospital, about how she met Mike in the emergency room when he accidentally cut his hand with a saw at the hardware store. I thought he was just a clumsy idiot, she says, laughing out loud, but a very cute, clumsy idiot. We all laugh. It is nice. It is comfortable. It is surprisingly normal. When we finish, Mike pays the entire bill before I can even begin to protest. Please, Dad, let me get this. In the parking lot right before we leave, Patty gives me a warm hug. Thank you so much for giving him another chance. I know he does not deserve it, but I promise you he is not going to waste it. I certainly hope not. Mike walks over to me. Dad, there is one more thing I want to ask you. What is it? I want you to be my best man at the wedding. I am left completely speechless. Mike, I do not know if... Please, Dad. I know it is a massive thing to ask. I know I do not deserve it, but it would mean absolutely everything to me. You raised me. You taught me everything I know, and yes, I failed you terribly. But I want you to be standing right there when I make this huge commitment. I want you to see that I actually learned, that I have changed. I look over at Helen. She nods her head softly. All right, I say finally. I will be your best man. Mike pulls me into a hug. This time, it is a long, incredibly tight embrace. I can feel his warm tears soaking into my shoulder. Thank you, Dad. I swear to you, I am never going to let you down again. I hope so, son. That night at home, Helen and I talk about the dinner. They are really good people, she says. Patty is, yes. And Mike is trying. Sometimes that is enough. The attempt, the sincere effort. Maybe, she hugs me tight. I'm so proud of you, Robert, for being strong enough to protect yourself and brave enough to give someone another chance. The weeks leading up to the wedding completely fly by. Mike and I start seeing each other a lot more often now, always with Patty or Helen or Charlie present. We are never completely alone. We are still not ready for that. But little by little, conversation by conversation, we are building something entirely new. It is not what we had before. It never will be. But perhaps it is something better, something a lot more honest, something based on hard-earned respect instead of assumed obligation. Attorney Davies and I thoroughly review the business plan for the second store location. It is extremely well put together, very professional, highly viable. Mr. Harrison did a great job with this, I say. And Mike did too, Davis adds. He has changed, Robert. I can see it in how he handles the business now. Truly. Really? Really, he's far more careful, much more responsible. He actually listens to advice now. He works incredibly hard. I'm glad to hear that. Are you going to formally approve the expansion? Yes, but with strict conditions. I retain majority control. Mr. Harrison supervises absolutely everything, and any major financial move requires my direct approval. That sounds more than fair. The day before the wedding, Mike calls me. Dad, can we talk? Just you and me. Is everything all right? Yes, I need to tell you something before tomorrow. All right. Where? The park? Our old bench under the oak tree? I will be right there. We meet up just as the sun is setting. The sky is painted in bright shades of orange and pink. Mike arrives carrying 2 cups of coffee. I remembered you like it with just a little bit of sugar. Thank you. We sit down. For a long while, we just sip our coffee in complete silence. Dad, I am getting married tomorrow, he finally begins. I know. And I want to start this brand new chapter of my life with a completely clean slate between us. Mike, please let me finish. I need to say this. I nod. What I did to you was completely unforgivable. There is no excuse. There is absolutely no justification for it. I was cruel, I was greedy, and I was incredibly stupid. I let Lucy completely manipulate me, yes, but I made those choices. I was the one who demanded rent. I was the one who treated you like a heavy burden. I humiliated you. His voice cracks. And the absolute worst part is that I did it knowing full well that you had sacrificed everything for me. I knew exactly how hard you had worked. I knew how much you had given up, and I still treated you like absolute garbage. The tears are streaming freely down his face now. Dad, I do not expect you to forgive me completely. I honestly do not know if I would ever forgive myself if I were in your shoes. But I want you to know that I live with that burning shame every single day of my life. That I look in the mirror and I see the man who deeply hurt his own father. And I hate myself for it. Mike, but I also want you to know that I learned. I learned that money is worth absolutely nothing without respect. That family is not about what you can extract from them, but what you can give. That a person's dignity, especially your father's, is completely sacred. He aggressively wipes his tears away. Patty is turning me into a better man. Charlie is teaching me how to be a better father. And you, even in your complete absence, have been teaching me how to be a better son. Mike, son, I know we will never go back to being what we once were. I know that Robert and that Mike died that awful night. But I hope, Dad, I hope with all my heart that we can build something new. Something based on brutal honesty and true, genuine respect. I place my hand firmly on his shoulder. We are already doing that, Mike. Little by little, but we are doing it. He completely breaks down on my shoulder, sobbing uncontrollably like he has not done since he was a little boy. I'm so incredibly sorry, Dad. I hug him for real, not a polite, distant hug. A real, deep hug from a father to his son. I know, Mike, I know. We stay right there as the sun finally sets over Chicago. A father and a son. Broken but slowly healing. Separated but finally finding their way back to one another. It is not a perfect fairy tale ending. There is still a lot of pain. There are still deep scars. There is still a massive amount of work to do. But for the first time in a very long time, there is real hope. The morning of the wedding arrives with a perfectly clear blue sky. I wake up early, feeling nervous in a way I honestly did not expect. Helen is already awake, brewing the morning coffee. How are you feeling? She asks softly. Honestly, I do not know. Nervous, hopeful, scared. All of that is completely normal. She wraps her arms around me. You are going to be just fine, and I will be right there with you. The ceremony is at 5 in the afternoon at a beautiful estate just outside the city. It is small and intimate, exactly like Mike said it would be. We arrive early. Mike is in a separate room, getting dressed in his suit. When he sees me, he smiles widely. Dad, you actually came. I told you I would. I know, but a part of me was terrified you would change your mind at the last second. I'm right here, Mike. I step closer and help him adjust his tie. My hands are shaking just a little bit. Nervous? He asks. A little. You too? Yeah. We work on the tie in complete silence. When I finish, I take a step back to look at him. You look very sharp, son. His eyes fill with unshed tears. Thank you, Dad, for being here, for giving me this chance, for absolutely everything. Today is your big day. Focus entirely on Patty, on your future together, on being happy. I will, I promise you. The ceremony is absolutely beautiful. Patty looks radiant in her simple but incredibly elegant dress. Charlie is the ring bearer, and he takes his important job very seriously. When the time comes for the speeches, Mike looks right at me. I had no idea I was supposed to speak, but suddenly the officiant is handing me a microphone. Mr. Mitchell, the best man, is now going to share a few words with us. I look at Mike. He nods, encouraging me. I slowly stand up. I see all the faces in the room looking right at me. Patty is smiling warmly. Helen is giving me quiet strength with her gaze. Charlie is staring with his big eyes, completely full of pure admiration. I did not prepare a speech, I begin. My voice sounds a lot stronger than I expected. But perhaps that is for the best, because what I really want to say comes straight from the heart. I take a very deep breath. Mike is my son. I have watched him grow from a tiny baby into the man standing before you today. And like all children, like all people, he has made mistakes. Some small ones, and some not so small. I see Mike briefly lower his head. But what truly matters is not the mistakes we make in life. It is what we choose to do afterward. Whether we actually learn from them, whether we change, whether we fight to become better people. I look directly at Mike, and I have seen my son learn. I have seen him actively change. I have watched him transform into a much better man, a far better father, and a truly better person. My voice cracks just a tiny bit. Forgiveness is never easy. True reconciliation is rarely simple. But love, real, genuine love, always finds a way. It is not always the path we initially expected. It does not always look the way we thought it would, but it is a path forward. I turn to look at Patty. Patty, thank you for loving my son. Thank you for seeing the man he can truly be, and not just the man he once was. Thank you for giving him a real reason to be better. She is openly crying now, and Mike, I look back at my son, I wish you all the absolute happiness in the world. I wish you a strong marriage completely filled with deep respect, brutal honesty, and true love. I hope that you will be exactly the husband that Patty deserves, and that together you will build something incredibly beautiful. I raise my glass high to Mike and Patty, to the kind of love that heals, to second chances, and to family in all its brilliantly imperfect and beautiful forms. Everyone raises their glasses. Mike stands up and hugs me tightly in front of the entire room. Thank you, Dad, he whispers in my ear, for everything. The reception is wonderfully joyful. There is live music, delicious food, and constant laughter. I dance with Helen, I dance with Patty, I even dance with Charlie, standing right on top of my shoes. At one point in the evening, Mike steps up onto the stage to give his own speech. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, he begins, especially my dad. He looks right at me. Dad, I failed you in ways that I never should have. I hurt you when you had only ever given me unconditional love. I treated you terribly when you deserved nothing but respect. And honestly, I did not deserve to have you here today. The entire room falls completely silent. But you gave me another chance, not because I earned it, but because you are a man with an incredibly huge heart. You taught me the single most important lesson of my entire life. That respect is never optional, that a person's dignity is completely sacred, that true family is about how people treat you, not just who happens to share your blood. The tears are streaming down his face. And I want everyone here to know that the man I am today, the man who is marrying this incredible woman, the father who is desperately trying to be better for Charlie, that man only exists because my dad refused to accept anything less than what he deserved, because he loved me enough to let me go when I desperately needed to be let go, and because he had the absolute grace to let me come back when I was finally ready. He wipes his tears. I love you, Dad, and I will spend the rest of my life proving that I actually deserve the forgiveness you have given me. There is not a single dry eye in the room. The night continues with more music and dancing. At one point, I am sitting at a table with Helen, watching Mike and Patty dance together. "What are you thinking about?" Helen asks. "About how far we have come, about everything that had to happen just to get us right here." "Do you regret any of it?" I think about it very carefully. I do not regret standing up for myself. I do not regret demanding basic respect. I do not regret walking away when I absolutely needed to walk away. But I am very glad that I came back, not to be the man I was before, but to build something brand new. Helen takes my hand in hers. "You are a very wise man, Robert Mitchell. Or maybe just a very tired man who finally learned how to value himself." We both laugh softly. A little while later, Charlie comes running over. "Grandpa, Daddy says we can go to Yellowstone National Park for our next vacation. Will you come with us?" I look over at Mike, who is standing nearby. He nods his head. A silent, genuine invitation. "Maybe, champ. We will see. Please say yes. It will be so much fun, all of us together." "I will think about it. I promise." When the night finally ends, Mike and Patty head out to the parking lot to leave for their honeymoon. Mike hugs me one last time. "Thank you for being here tonight, Dad. It means absolutely everything to me. Take very good care of your new wife." "I will. And Dad, about that trip to Yellowstone, I was completely serious. I would really love it if we all went. You, Helen, Patty, Charlie, and me, like a real family. We will talk about it when you get back from your honeymoon." "All right." Driving back home with Helen, I stare out at the glowing lights of Chicago. "Will you actually go to Yellowstone with them?" Helen asked quietly. "I think so. But I will still be setting firm boundaries, still being very careful." "That is smart. I learned the hard way that love without boundaries is just abuse. That you can deeply love someone and still actively protect yourself from them. That true forgiveness does not mean forgetting everything or just going back to the way things were." Helen nods. "Forgiveness means choosing not to carry the deadly poison of resentment in your heart, but it also means being wise about your own future." Exactly. At home that night, I write in my journal one last time about this long, exhausting chapter. Today was Mike's wedding. I was his best man. 3 years ago, I never would have imagined we could ever get here. The pain was too fresh. The betrayal ran too deep. But here we are. We are not what we once were, and we never will be. But we are something. Something brand new. Something honest. Something built entirely on earned respect instead of assumed, blind obligation. Is it completely perfect? No. Is there still lingering pain? Yes. Is there still a lot of hard work left to do? Absolutely. But there is real hope. And sometimes that is more than enough. If anyone out there is reading this, if you are going through something even remotely similar, I want you to know this. Defending yourself is not cruelty. It is pure self-love. Setting firm boundaries is not a punishment. It is vital protection. Walking away is not cruel abandonment. It is basic survival. And choosing to come back whenever and if you are ever truly ready is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of immense strength, because it takes incredible strength to truly forgive. It takes strength to rebuild something from the ashes. It takes massive strength to love someone who broke you, all while remaining completely unshakable in your own personal dignity. My son failed me, but he is also learning. He is actively growing. He is changing. Is it going to be enough? Only time will tell. But for right now, I am willing to give him the chance to prove it. Not because he necessarily earned it, but because I deserve the absolute peace that only comes from forgiveness. I close my journal. Helen is already fast asleep. I lie down next to her, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I close my eyes completely at peace. Because I have finally learned that a real happy ending is not about going back to the way things were. It is about creating something entirely new, something much better, something based on brutal truth, solid respect, and genuine love. And that finally is exactly what I have. Tomorrow is a brand new day, filled with new possibilities and new adventures. Maybe that family trip to Yellowstone, maybe more quiet afternoons spent with Charlie, maybe more careful, honest conversations with Mike as we slowly rebuild. But no matter what tomorrow brings, I will face it with my head held high, with complete dignity, and with absolute self-respect. Because I am Robert Mitchell, and I will never again sleep on anyone's couch.